You've just landed Inside LaunchStreet, the innovation podcast, where we interview top innovators out there shaking things up so you can innovate and differentiate and get further, faster in this crazy, cluttered world. And now, innovation thought leader and your Superfly host, Tamara Kleinberg.
Hey, LaunchStreeters, Tamara here, your innovation enabler and one-time winner of the Camp Treasure Hunt. I know, jelly, right? I think I still have the troll doll that I got as my reward. This is part 2 of my 3-part conversation with Anthony Lambatos, president of Footers Catering and IQE partner. In this episode, we start to dig into how Anthony uses the Innovation Quotient Edge assessment. That's the assessment that tells people how they innovate naturally, how he uses it with his team. This is all about how do you get your team to unlock their innovation advantage. So they're bringing their A game to work every day so that as a team, you have that competitive advantage. We talk about how expecting all of us, the people on your team, to innovate in the same way is actually setting us all up for failure, how it's not one person's job to contribute to innovation, and why understanding your power triggers, and in this case for Anthony, his is Tweaker Collaborative, how that's helped him build his business. He also shares something interesting in that how he owning his power triggers, knowing what they are, has actually helped him know when to lean on the people around him too, to use their power triggers to help him out in the places where maybe he's weaker. I thought that part of the conversation was actually incredibly fascinating and something we don't talk about enough. He also shares his experiences of putting all the same power triggers together to solve a problem versus balancing out the team. It's a fascinating sociological experiment, if that's what you call it. But it gives us a lot of insight into why balancing out those teams and having different perspective of innovation is so important. I think Anthony brings home why giving people the knowledge and the room to innovate their way is the difference between incremental and transformative. Let's get to it. You're going to love this one. All right, everybody. Anthony is back again, which I'm so excited about it. So thanks for joining me yet again.
It's a pleasure to be here. Always fun to have a conversation.
Our conversations are good. They crack me up a little bit. And I take copious notes every time. I'm like, whoa, remind me of that one. So in this time together in our podcast, I wanted to talk a bit about how you leverage the IQE for yourself and for your team. So for those of you listening, if you don't know what that is, let me just give you some backdrop. So the IQE is the Innovation Quotient Edge assessment. It's the only innovation assessment that tells you how you naturally innovate. So your innovator archetypes, so that you can innovate on demand, so that you can tap into that wellspring of solutions and ideas and creative thinking and performing your peak. And I think for a lot of us also be that stronger, more valued voice on our teams and in our organizations because we're bringing that thinking to the table. And, you know, if you've heard Anthony or I talk either from stage or together, you know that, you know, being innovative is universal, but how we do it is unique to each of us. And part of the big challenge, I think, and Anthony, I'd love to hear your perspective on this too, is we tell people to innovate, but then we expect them all to do it the same way. But we all do it a little bit differently. So it fails because I say, Anthony, you're on my team. Here's how I do it, right? I'm a risk taker, experiential. There's 9 triggers, and we'll get into a little bit of the descriptions. But, you know, so Anthony, you should do it that way. But you're not that. You're something else, and you do it differently. So Anthony, I'd love to hear your perspective on that, on how we all try to do it one way. And then I want to dig into kind of what you are and how you've leveraged that.
Yeah, well, I think that's why I love the IQE so much. It really resonated that we all have these different power triggers that help us be more innovative, and that it's not just one person's job, and we all can contribute to that within our company. So I was originally fascinated by it, and when I took it, it made all the sense in the world for me and who I am. You know, mine are the collaborative and the tweaker.
So you, as I've gotten to know you, like that really just nails it for you. I love it.
It's perfect. I really like bringing people together. I want to solicit input from a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, I think I always knew that was a good way to not just build trust, but to get buy-in as well. That when you ask a lot of people for their input, all of a sudden You may not use it all the time, but when you are using it and they see that you genuinely are taking their ideas into consideration, they're more invested in how that process is going to go through. And so that's definitely something that I love bringing people together. And the other collaboratives, we have quite a few collaboratives within our team.
It's kind of part of your, for what you do in catering, it makes a lot of sense.
Yes, and we're by nature too a pretty collaborative organization. We, to a fault, maybe this is where, on the flip side of being aware of what your triggers are, of where that can hold you back. Sometimes, it's not necessary to go ask 8 people for their opinion on how we should proceed. I just need to make the decision and go with it. And so that it was also beneficial for the IQE of the what are the potential downsides of some of our power triggers, and where do I need to really lean on April a little bit more, who's much more of a risk taker, to push us to let's just move. We've asked enough people, we've gotten enough information. Let's
move on.
Take this jump.
Time to go.
And so that dynamic is important in understanding how everybody works together. The tweaker is perfect because the position I was in, I didn't have to start a business from scratch, and I admire everything my dad had to do to build it up to where it was. But I was very fortunate to be able to have something tangible that I could start making better. And the tweaker and the make it better every day go hand in hand, which we've talked about. But I love that, of being able to have something already in place, and then I can point out 3 or 4 ways that, if we do this or we do this is how we can make that better, is really great. On the flip side, I maybe have a tendency to tweak too much when it's like, okay, it's tweaked enough.
It's done.
It's good. Let's move on to the next thing. So the awareness of those things was huge for me personally, and it has definitely helped me not just in the innovative process, but working with my team on a lot of projects.
So talk to me a little bit about, so you took it, and actually let me say for those listening, so Anthony is a collaborative tweaker, and just to sum those two up, in the descriptions, if you're that listening as well, the collaboratives are people like Anthony who pull disparate people and ideas and perspectives together. That's how they innovate. So funny enough, Anthony, my dormant trigger is collaborative, which I was all offended. I'm like, this is my own assessment. How is I love people. How is this possible? But the truth is, I present ideas to the world 90% done. It's not that I'm not open to feedback, but I don't pull those nuggets in to create the idea the way you do. The cool thing about that, to your point, is you tend to get more buy-in along the way because you constantly are asking people for their perspective and they feel like a part of the process. On top of that, your innovation tends to be more lasting because it's actually has a more 360 view to it because of how you pulled all this stuff together. The tweaker side of it, I always love because you're so good at editing, evolving, and adjusting because you recognize that innovation is just one tiny edit away. Like we were kind of talking on the last podcast. Sometimes it's just one little shift. So while the rest of us give up, you're still making those adjustments. And in those little adjustments, you bring actually big innovation. It just shows up in these little shifts along the way. Let me start with you. How has that helped you lead your organization and grow it?
You mean in terms of everybody taking the IQE?
No, I want to start first with you as the president of the company. How does that help you now that you know that you're those things? How does that actually help you be a better leader overall? And then I want to talk about your team.
Sure. A couple of things that I had mentioned leading up to this, knowing that the collaborative is my natural tendency. I feel like already drawn to that before I even took the assessment and was very much me, but being even more intentional about that and saying, okay, I like to get these ideas. Maybe I need to make sure that I'm not just going to the same 4 people for ideas and branching out beyond that.
Right.
The people that I trust and the people that I know, it's a tendency to make sure that it's a wide range of people within our organization, and kind of what I was talking about, the downfalls of both, of understanding when it's not necessary to, utilize that collaborative side of ththings. That sometimes I can put something together and maybe get one or two people's ideas and let's just go with it and move on. And same thing on the tweaker, being careful about not tweaking too much. But also understanding that that's where I add value. And, I'm not a great person to have, try to come up with that idea from scratch. It's just not going to be, I'm going to struggle a little bit with that. But if I walk into a room and they've already brainstormed 2 or 3 ideas and they've got them on the table, I'm going to be a great asset to saying, hey, I like this. We could just add this and this to it, or this could be great. Did you think about this way? And so that's where, knowing where I fit into that process, I'm much better to let a group of people come up with something and then come in a little later and try to tweak it.
Do you know what's so cool about that story too, Anthony, is there's so many levels to why that's beneficial. One is you're being used in your best way, right? So they're going to bring you in when you're best. So you get to shine, you get to build on your strengths. I mean, that's just a wellspring of energy and excitement and your best thinking. But also, how much better for your productivity and your efficiency. And it just, because you're not being brought in at the beginning, they're going to do their meeting and then bring you in. So instead of spending all your time in a position that you're really not right for, you're being brought in at the right time. And it was, as you were talking about that, it was reminding me of how I have to build a lot of slides for my presentations. And I used to try to give the people who worked for me an outline and say, okay, here's what I want included. And it never came back right. And it's not their fault. It's my fault. But anytime they send it back to me, I'm like, no, this is not quite what I was looking for. And we'd waste a ridiculous amount of time going back and forth. And I'm an experiential, which means I innovate in motion. I have to touch it, feel it, see it. And when I do that, I can be incredibly innovative. But if it's in theory, I really shut down. And what I realized is I had to actually spend a little bit more time upfront building my own slides, not formatting, not making sure they're perfect, just visually pulling my thoughts together. And then I could hand it to the team. And what they brought, actually one of them's a tweaker, so what she brought back to me is amazing and better than I ever expected. But I couldn't do it any other way. I was wasting so much time.
Right. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your team. So your whole team has taken it. And I know, correct me if I'm wrong, you just had some new onboards take it too. So talk to me about how how you use it and how it's benefited them as a team.
Yeah, we just went through, kind of a refresh on it. It had been a couple years since we originally did the assessment. So we had a handful of people that had already taken it. And I would say it's probably about, 60% of people had taken it, but then we had 40% the people that hadn't taken it. So it was great for them to be exposed to it as well. We had everybody take it, and then I did a little session with everybody about what the IQE is and what it means, and it was awesome. Probably the best thing that was highlighted, because we were asking a lot of questions for about everything, and one of my team members spoke up, and she goes, well, now I can see why we just had this meeting and we didn't get anything done yesterday. What? And it was funny because it was a group of people. We do quarterly management team dinners. And so we'll have 4 to 5 people that get together and plan whatever this fun kind of social team dinner. Spouses get to come, but there's 4 to 5 people that each quarter are on the planning committee for that. Oh, fun. And so this planning committee was made up of 4 people that are all inquisitives. And
no wonder.
and so they said, yeah, we just kept asking each other questions about what we should do.
That's funny. That is what, though, that cracks me up, because especially with inquisitives, because they innovate by asking questions and digging deep and pulling back layers. But you're right. And anytime you get a group of the same triggers together, it actually personifies the harder parts of that, to use it earlier, a little bit of the barriers of that power trigger, because you can't get anything done. Like if you got a bunch of risk takers like me together, oh my God, we would just be leaping all over the place and never complete anything.
Right. Yeah. So these
And you'd be talking all day with other collaboratives.
Yeah, of the four, three were collaborative. So 3 4 were collaborative inquisitives. And one was an inquisitive, I think, tweaker or something like that. And so they're sitting there happy to be together, but not getting anywhere. And they totally realized it once they saw the heat map is what they saw. Yeah. And they saw all three of the four names in the same box. And it totally light went on of like, yeah, we sat there and just asked a bunch of questions for 45 minutes and couldn't make a decision on what we should do.
Oh my gosh.
And so it was a perfect time where our team, we started to really understand how this works, how it comes together. We have a lot of collaboratives, a lot of inquisitives, and a lot of tweakers, which I know is pretty standard among the national or the population that's taken the
They're
IQE.
The higher percentage ones.
Right, exactly. But what we did is two things. One, we printed the little icons with the name below them, and everybody has them on their door. So that's the reminder of who's a tweaker and who's a futuristic and who's instinctual. And so that's kind of a fun thing that it's a daily reminder of that. And then we have a chart that shows who's in each category as well.
Oh, that's cool.
So as we're putting teams together, we can start to say, hey, let's make sure we've got somebody. We have one risk taker, one imaginative, and one fluid. So those are kind of high sought after.
Yeah, everybody wants them.
Yeah, but in the certain situations, making sure to include one of the three of them in whatever project is being worked on could be really valuable. Futuristics and instinctual, same thing. We've got a handful of those. And so making sure that they're in the mix with some of the collaboratives or the inquisitives can be really valuable for us moving forward as we put together smaller teams to accomplish what we want to accomplish. We want to make sure that we have a good cross section of IQE power triggers.
Don't you find it fascinating how when you not only understand yourself, so you know how you innovate and you can do more of that, but also, since I understand that you're a collaborative tweaker, that I'm now going to use you in a different way, but also I can really respect better your perspective. It's just kind of funny, but collaboratives take 20 minutes to walk down the hall because you talk to everybody. And I used to get super annoyed by that because I think, can't you just get to work, Anthony? Like, come on. But that's actually, for you, you're actually innovating because you're pulling different things from different people. And it doesn't have to be a work conversation for that to happen for you at all, actually. And it's so fascinating. And inquisitives, they get a bad rap because they're the ones constantly asking questions when the rest of us just want to go have lunch. But now that I get that, I'm like, oh my God, okay, she's not challenging my authority or questioning me or trying to keep me late in the meeting and being disrespectful. She's actually innovating, and I need to take a second and let that happen.
Exactly. Same for the inquisitives. That was a huge eye-opener for us, that annoying, asking a bunch of questions. We have a handful of inquisitives, and that could be perceived as really obnoxious. Like, what are you doing? Like, stop asking all these questions.
Just go do your job.
Once people could see that's kind of their, natural way of innovating, they're more patient with those team members.
Yeah, and I think you can really respect, to your point earlier about pulling the right people in. I know when the ideas that I'm thinking about or that the team is coming up with are superficial or they're not quite getting there, I want to pull in those inquisitives because they will challenge assumptions because they're always asking, well, why? Well, how come? Mm-hmm. Well, what if, right? So I know that if we can't get past those barriers, that those are the people that I want to pull in to dig and ask those questions. And, if there's a project that requires, someone to think 10 steps ahead, that's not me. I'm experiential. I'm very grounded in, I want to see how it works. I want to pull in a futuristic because they're in Tomorrowland. That's how they innovate, is by thinking ahead. So, you want them there. Now is Steph, right? Uh-huh. She told me a great story about how she was doing one job and then she took the IQE and they realized she was a futuristic, and you moved her into a job that was actually better for her. Do you remember that? Will you talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
I probably should have warned you because that story just really stuck with me.
I think it's all part of. We have a philosophy. We want to make sure people are in the right spots and doing things that give them the most opportunity to be successful.
Which is amazing in itself, by the way, because I don't think that's true at every company.
And so there's a piece of this assessment that goes into that. And so there was, she self-admits that she was kind of struggling with her position and, wasn't fulfilled. And so we were thinking about, okay, well, is there a spot for you here? And what can we have you do? And so, we leaned a little bit on that futuristic side of things and her ability to really see how something could be put together. And so now she does all of our design and displays for our food stations. And so she definitely has that view 10 steps ahead of what something can look like and how it can go together. And, if you tell her, well, hey, how about this? She'll already know how that'll impact things, 3-4 steps down the road of why that could be a great idea or why that could fall apart based on how it gets packed and sent to events. So it's definitely a new position that better utilizes her IQE futuristic power trigger.
Yeah, I remember talking to her, and I remember her talking about the old job and then talking about the transition had just happened, I think, when I talked to her, and how much she lit up talking about the new job, how excited she was. And she was explaining something to me and envisioning it. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna keep up with you. I swear, I'm gonna keep up with you. It was so good. It was just really cool to see. Why do you think it's so important to allow people to have the space to innovate in their own way? And maybe I should have asked this in the beginning, but ultimately that's what I'm hearing you say is, this person does it this way and this person does it that way. And the IQE happens to be a tool that allows you to deliver on that. But you've got to, as the leader, have to have the belief that everyone needs room to do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're big on awareness here. You can't fix something or make it better or take advantage of it unless you're aware of it. And so I love the fact that the IQE provided everyone with more information about themselves and how they work and how they could be successful and where they might struggle. And so I think that that's something that I really jumped on and said, this is going to be great. And I think our team really embraced as well because they were excited about that, excited to learn more about themselves and how they could work even better. So that's, I think, where we've been fortunate with our team and why it's had such a great impact.
Let me ask you a question. You've mentioned struggle a few times now in this conversation about understanding where maybe even your power triggers kind of become barriers, understanding how you struggle. Mm-hmm. Why is that so important to you or to the success of the team? Yeah, you've mentioned it a few times. So I'm just wondering kind of why that keeps bubbling up.
Well, I think it's, you have to get through that. It goes back to kind of the J-curve talk a little bit, but there's always going to be challenges. And if you back down from those and say it's going to be too hard and go the other way, then I don't think you're ever going to have an opportunity to really be awesome. And so we embrace the fact that it's going to be a challenge. We're going to have struggles. We're going to have to, it's not going to be this just easy road that we're going to be able to take. I think when people are more prepared for that. And so in relation to the IQE, this is our way of giving people more tools to be able to better overcome those challenges and struggles.
Yeah, I think it's, and I think that also goes to your willingness to allow people to make mistakes and to fail. Not to let them make the same mistake over and over again, but, just that permission to do that is part of also permission to know that, hey, not everything is going to be easy. And that's okay.
We like to ask the question, are you failing in pursuit of awesomeness?
Oh. Okay, so here's my question then. Okay, two things. I'm jumbled. Here we go. One is, does anyone ever say, you know what, no, in this case I didn't and I should have?
No, not often. It's probably more the other way around. Where we have to push people a little bit. I think it's just a natural inclination that, you want to be successful. So we can talk about this and we can highlight it. And I think we do a really good job for the most part. But that is kind of that challenge that we put out there to everybody is it's okay once in a while if your intention was to do something amazing. We have a saying, and this kind of leads more to empowerment of our team, but if it's right for the customer, if it's right for the company, and you're willing to be held accountable for it, don't ask, just do it. And so I think that innovation kind of goes into that same boat of, are you trying to do something that we're making better every day? Did you take a step in that direction? Cool, great. Did it work? If not, that's okay. What are you going to do differently next time? And we don't get too caught up in some of those slips. We want to just say, hey, did you learn from it? Are we working towards it? And keep that up, because at some point, all those stumbles are going to lead to something great.
Well, and I think with your team, you do such a good job of really bringing innovation to life in your company that it's so ingrained in them that that's what they're in the pursuit of, because it's so ingrained. And, it's interesting to me. I will tell you, we had a mistake recently where we sent the wrong link for the IQE to a client for a keynote. So it's 1,000 of them. This link had, I know it gets worse. This link had only 400 of it from the last session, and 300 of them had already been used. So very quickly, the link was full and couldn't be used. Boy. I know. And they're a technology association. It was like awesome. But here's what I will say. The whole thing was just an accident. The first time in 2 years, it was done in the, to your point, pursuit of being awesome, getting them what they needed, getting the stuff done. Like it wasn't malicious, of course. And so what I did when I realized that is, we sat down and we said, okay, what do we need to change so this doesn't happen again? There was no, why did you do this? You need to, there was none of that. The person owned it. It was not about that. It was about, okay, this is a great opportunity to not let this happen again. So what do we learn? And what do we need to do to ensure that we have some fail safes to make sure that doesn't happen? And interestingly, I was having a conversation with a colleague, and the colleague said, oh my God, did you go apeshit or what? And I was like, no. No, first of all, we fixed it within 12 hours, but more importantly, it was done as the right thing to do. It just, something went wrong and it didn't work. That's all.
Yeah, we always talk about, or I like to speak about, I don't think people show up trying to do a bad job or trying to screw up at work. No one comes to work and says, I'm going to really do a bad job.
Today's the day.
It just doesn't happen that way. So very rarely are people intentionally trying to do something that's screwing up. So then it goes back to, do they have the competency to do it?
Right.
And that's a whole separate question. Was it a carelessness thing that we can improve upon, or was it, like you said, a flaw in the system that needs to be fixed?
That's what it was.
Should have been a double check, or there's something that has to be changed so that doesn't happen again. So yeah, I'm with you on that.
Those moments are just great learning if it's done with the right intention. To your point, most of it is. All right, I want to close out this session. I want you to talk about your whole thing around awesome, because I think that really wraps up why kind of you I think personally really resonated with the IQE and why the team takes it, because I think it all translates into that concept of awesome. Yeah.
Awesomeness is one of our core values, and it originated, actually it started as excellence, and we quickly felt like that was a little boring and wasn't really
totally boring, I'm not going to lie.
And so awesomeness felt a lot more cool. It felt a lot more of what we were trying to embrace. Of we want to do things that make people say, like, wow, that is really cool. And to us, that's what awesomeness is. So there's a lot of awesomeness around our facility here, and we even have parking signs out front that say "Reserved for Awesomeness," which has been a great psychological experiment, because the number of people that like pull in and look at it and then back out.
Oh my gosh! Oh, did I do that? Oh my God.
Yes, they didn't feel awesome today. And then there's other people that pull right in and thanks for the reserved spot. That was great. Oh my
God, that's hysterical. I wonder if I pulled away. Now I'm wondering what I did last time I was there. Did I? Oh my God. Was that for me?
Yeah.
And I have to imagine with your clients and your customers, they really feel that too, don't you think?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, what do they tell you about that? I'm just wondering, because I just love it.
Well, I think it comes back to the service we provide, and our at our events and what we do. And we get rave reviews from our clients, and overwhelmingly they talk about how awesome our people are. And so that, I think, is such a huge piece of we create a great place to work, we take care of our team, they're going to take care of our people, and they're genuinely excited to be at the events we're catering. It's not, I got to go to work today. I think our team takes so much pride in being awesome and putting out a great product, and takes pride in the company they work for, and that ultimately has a huge impact on our clients.
Anthony, I and for listeners out there, I'm sure it sounds like I'm gushing all over Anthony, but it's true. Like what Footers has done has really been incredible. And as I said, prior on a different podcast, I think that we're all in really crowded arenas where we have a lot of really good competition. So you in the hospitality and events, there's a lot of great competition out there.
There definitely is.
Yeah, there is for all of us. Anyone who thinks there isn't is fooling themselves, in my opinion. And to have such an innovative culture and to actually be willing to spend that much time as you really do on your culture just proves how big the payoff is. And I think for those of us leading teams and companies, we really need to rethink how much, and I'm going to put this in massive air quotes. If I had major man hands, you'd see it. We think of it as like the extra after hours fun time, but it's not. It's the foundation. And I think you've really proved that.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Isn't Anthony insightful? I think so too. I appreciated his perspective on how, in understanding your power triggers, your unique innovator archetype, how you innovate, you're also understanding when and how you need to collaborate with others. Mostly, did you see how Anthony really leverages his innovator archetype to innovate in everything he does? He's had so much success, and I want you to have the same. So here's what I suggest you do. Go to our website, go to LaunchStreet.com, GOTO LaunchStreet.com, and take the assessment. Discover how you innovate, how you perform at your best. Learn how to innovate on demand. Tap into that wellspring inside of you. All right, get to it. Tamara out.
Thanks for hanging out with us inside LaunchStreet. When you're ready to take your game to the next level, join the thousands of others that are upping their innovation edge on GoToLaunchStreet.com, the top online education resource and community platform for innovators looking to use innovation to get measurable results. Go to LaunchStreet.com.